You know, you're a beautiful example. A lot of the people that come to this podcast, they have broken free into their own business and they tend to have a business with multiple employees, which is not necessarily the case for everybody. You are a great example of that. The fact that you want to become independent and you want to break free from your current, whatever you're doing right now,
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you have to have employees and you have to have all this crazy structure. You can be like Henrik and become a fractional consultant where you still get to grow, you still get to do multiples, but at the same time, you're still managing yourself only and not anybody else. Welcome to the Break Free Podcast. I am your host and your servant, David Mancela. Today we have with us a fantastic person that became what he wanted to become, and he found his freedom in making his career into something that most people want to use and consume, not only one company as before, as he was a full-time employee before. Henrik, welcome to the show.
Thank you, David. Thank you.
Brother, give me your full name. Where do you live and what do you do for a living?
Okay, my name is Henrik Leborg. I live outside Toronto, Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ontario. It's just on the US border. I am a fractional CFO. So I have a background as a senior executive as a controller and a CFO in a number of companies spanning well over 20 years. And some years ago, I wanted to start on my own and to become a fractional CFO. And it took me a little while to find sort of my precise role, but I have found it now. So I work with business owners that own businesses between 10 and 50 employees. So they have come to a point where they need some more financial clarity in their business. They want to grow. They want to become more profitable. They want to have more cash flow. They want to increase the value in their company, and they need to make some financial decisions. And that's where I come in. And in addition to that, I am what's called a certified value builder, which is a methodology that rates businesses on 8 different drivers of value. So they could be such as what's the proportion of revenue that is recurring? Is the one important one is the business independent of its owner? Because if the business is not independent of its owner, where the owner is basically selling a job, not a business, and that affects the price quite a bit. What's a customer concentration? Does it have a niche? Is the company growing? Or is the market growing? So there's 8 factors in total. So what we do is we sort of get a score. This is where the score is now. Where do we want the score to be? And then we work systematically on each one of those drivers. So the score translates into a multiple. So you probably know that the value of a company is an earnings number times a multiple. Usually it's EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, times a multiple. So if you have a company that has an EBITDA of $1 million and a multiple of 3, that's worth $3 million. So if you start with a multiple, which we do in the value builder system, and let's say we want to increase the multiple from 3 to 5, which is actually realistic over a period of, let's say, 2 to 3 years, then the value will go from $3 million to $5 million. But what usually happens almost always when you start with a multiple, the EBITDA will also increase. So let's say that goes up to 1.5. So a 1.5 times 5 is 7.5. So the value of the company goes from 3 to 7.5. And that's sort of a realistic example. Sometimes if you only try to increase earnings without sort of changing the structure of the company, the value of the company, goes up, but the multiple doesn't go up. So the value enhancement, it's much lower.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's initially what I do.
So basically, everybody should hire you because when you start working for them, you can set up a structure to grow their EBITDA. Therefore, they can sell for multiples, and grows their net worth will grow dramatically, right? Tell me, how do you get into this idea of fractional CFO business? Like, what did you do before you were an independent CFO?
Well, I was excuse me, I was a controller and a chief financial officer in various private companies, anything to do with from banking, manufacturing, real estate, quickly, in some quick service restaurants. I worked in a number of different industries, but I wanted to work on my own, and the idea of a fractional CFO was something that appealed to me. The word fractional CFO is actually quite new, especially in Canada. When I started about 5 or 6 years ago, it was part-time CFO, and sometimes it was called a temporary CFO and interim CFO. And those are different roles. They sort of just full-time, but for limited. They're full-time positions, but for a very limited period of time. But I wanted someone that that could work for someone that couldn't afford a full-time CFO, but only want to hire someone on a fractional basis. So what I do, I'm sort of more of a consultant. In a sense that I don't go into clients' offices sort of one day a week. I would meet with them in their offices no more than monthly, usually quarterly, if at all. So you would have anywhere from weekly to monthly phone calls. So that's sort of the structure of how it works. The reason it appealed to me is that I can set my own hours. I do have a lot of various. I work in various companies, various stages. It's professionally much more interesting. So I find that I learn a lot more, and I can have more of a, I would say, have a direct impact on their business. I can also sort of, what I want to do is sort of what I want to do. So I tailor my offerings to what I think I'm good at, and instead of sort of this is the position and do this, I'm very conscious about what I do. And if they want something else, I would tend to hire in subcontractors or other people that do that. So,
you're a beautiful example. A lot of the people that come to this podcast, they have broken free into their own business, and they tend to have a business with multiple employees, which is not necessarily the case for everybody. You are a great example of that. So for the audience, the fact that you want to become independent and you want to break free from your current, whatever you're doing right now, doesn't mean that you have to have employees and you have to have all this crazy structure. You can be like Henrik and become a fractional consultant where you still get to grow, you still get to do multiples, but at the same time, you're still managing yourself only and not anybody else, if that makes sense. I remember when somebody told me, why are you quitting your job? Like, where are you gonna get your next paycheck? And you know what I told them? I told them, right now I have one source of income. If they let me go or something happens in the economy, I lose everything. When I get my own business, I'm gonna make sure I have at least 10 different sources of income, or at least 5. So if one client ends, I have another 4, and then I have enough time to get another one. So from the security perspective, doing what you're doing is 10 times more secure than just having a good, stable job in a company, if that's what you're looking for, right?
Well, absolutely. That was certainly one of the attractions. You're absolutely right. If you lose a job and it's your full-time source of employment, you have no income unless you have some other independent income. And but if you are sort of consultant like myself, you never lose 100%. And so what I'm trying to do now is to have not only several consulting clients, but to have several sources of income, like several revenue streams. So the consulting revenue stream would be one source. But then when you have subcontractors and other people like you, I would get referral fees, or I would get sort of a markup on subcontractors. That would be one, and that would be another source of income, probably a little bit smaller. And then you could do various things. There's something called masterminds where business owners come together and discuss various things. It's more like advisory boards. I would like to set those up and then be a facilitator, and that could be like a third source of income. So there are several sources of income. So you can have several clients plus other sources of income. So that's what I'm.
Which is beautiful.
Yeah.
For me, that's the sexiest thing in the world, right?
Yeah.
Not only having multiple sources of income, but different. That's called uncorrelated assets, right? Uncorrelated sources of income, so that if one dries up, you have the other one thriving, right?
Yeah, for
That's,
sure.
I started doing that with real estate back in 2007, and now I'm completely diversified so that I'm free. I'm not only free from my time, because I did it mostly because of my time. I wanted to invest my time wherever I wanted. I didn't want to get anybody to control my time. So once I accomplished that, then I thought, okay, I have freedom of time. Now I gotta have freedom of income, which means now it doesn't matter. I can close my business tomorrow. I have 7 other sources of income that are not correlated to each other. And that's what you need to build on. And by the way, it's little step by step. But before you know, I've been doing this for almost 15 years now on diversifying my income.
Yeah.
But now it's solid, and the streams are solid, and it's beautiful. And it just grows. I don't even have to make it grow anymore. It just grows by itself, right?
Excellent. Yeah, especially those ancillary sources of income can become, in your case, can become very, very significant. If you have a giant network, and then you can sort of farm out your network and get referral fees and things like that. It can really add to your income quite a bit. Yeah.
Henrik, so I know you released a book. Thank you so much for sending it to me, by the way.
Yeah.
Tell me about the book. Where did you get inspiration to do it? What's the name of the book?
The book here. It's Scaling Up. Are You Ready? So it's called 10 Critical Shifts Every Business Owner Must Understand to Create a Highly Profitable and Scalable Business. What I wanted to do was sort of to have a twofold. You can sort of, what is it I'm doing? So you can sort of think for yourself, crystallize what yourself are doing, and then tell other people this is what I'm doing. So it is a kind of a it's a story about Chris, who's a business owner, and then Adam, who's an advisor, and it's 10 different chapters with the various business problems. But it's a fictional story, so it's kind of like a Wealthy Barber, that kind of story. So it reads. It should be more interesting than if it's just a regular nonfiction book. So I wrote that about 2 years ago now, and so it's it's good. You have something that not everyone has done. You've written a book, and then it sort of doesn't go away, and it's part of what you've done. Yeah, something like.
It's beautiful. What was the process like? Why did you get where did you get the idea from, and what does it entail? Because I know a lot of people that are listening to this always had the idea of, I should write a book, but they don't even know where to start. So how was that mentality processing that you had to go through? How did it actually materialize into a book?
Well, I have to admit, I did get some help. There was a program I went into, so and it was fairly systematic. So if you look at this book here, you have the title, and then you have like a top title and another title, and then sort of a title underneath there. And I received help that these are the things you should have, and this is help on those. And then I also got a little bit of help on the number of chapters and sort of the generally the chapter headings, but I had to sort of come up with everything myself. And I have to confess, I had a ghostwriter that could really write very solid English. But I took very, very detailed notes. So everything that's in there is mine. But the story itself is like some of the action is from the ghostwriter.
So let me stop you right there.
Yeah.
Never feel sorry about using a ghostwriter.
Okay.
The world is filled with people
Yeah.
and huge egos.
Yeah.
If you want to say that you wrote the whole book by yourself and everything else is because you're feeding on your ego, when you admit that you're just a ghostwriter, that means you got the right who to squeeze your brain knowledge and put it properly into a paper. That's beautiful, right? Because everybody is winning at the same time.
So,
Ghostwriting for me is fantastic. Actually, when I make my books, you know how I make my books? I dictate them to people. So people interview me, they ask me questions, and I just talk like I'm talking to you right now. And from the talks, the book comes out, and it comes out beautiful. And then we do 10 revisions with me, right? 5 to 10 revisions. Actually, the editing part is the longest, but don't get me wrong. I will never, ever sit down and write word by word because English is not my first language to begin with. And I
still don't know my first language either. So,
right?
Yeah. So, one of the kind of like a funny story. The ghostwriter was actually from South Africa, so her first language is English. But sometimes if you go to Britain or South Africa or Australia, there are certain expressions that don't really translate that well into North America. So I found that you can have the ghostwriter could sort of be anywhere from an English-speaking country, but I would use an editor from North America. And so you have a writer, but you still need an editor. And an editor, it's still you can have an excellent writer, but you still need an editor, and that can't be sort of a family member unless that family member is a professional editor. So yeah.
Where can people get your book if they want to buy it?
People look for it on Amazon, but actually the only way they can get it is to go to my landing page. It's freescalingupbook.com, and they can input their name and their mailing address, and I will mail them to them for free. So
for free?
For free, yeah.
That's beautiful. Why are you doing that?
Well, it is. I mean, it's a book, but it's also a marketing asset. So I want people to get to know me, and if they get to know me, they would, maybe talk to someone else about me, and this is, I talk a little bit about what I do, and so it's a matter of advertising yourself and being like a trusted authority in a certain topic. So my goal is to be a trusted authority in these topics, and the one way of doing that is to have an asset. In this case, a book. So
that's so brilliant. For people that are hearing, basically what you're saying is that's your business card. Now, who will you hire?
It is my business card. Yeah.
Who will you hire? Somebody that is knowledgeable enough to write a book. That, by the way, the book is full with wisdom. Yeah. Or you want to hire somebody that just has a normal one little paper business card.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's fantastic. Yeah. How long did it take you from conception to publishing in terms of time?
Oh, as long as you wanted to take. Usually I found out when you have a ghostwriter, the bottleneck is you, not the ghostwriter. Right. So I would say it took me a few months. But you can have it can go very fast if you want to. But for me, it took me probably 4 or 5 months from I sort of started writing it to till it was done. So it took me about, let's say, 4 or 5 months. I can't remember exactly, but that was around the time it took. But you can make it a little bit faster if you want to. I also had someone that did, like the cover. I had someone that do like the formatting, which is not the editing, but like the formatting, so it look the way it looks on the printed page. and and then you of course have to print it, but that goes pretty fast. So it's just
It's wonderful.
yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Henrik, one quick question.
Yes.
If you had a billboard in the busiest highway on earth, what would you write in it?
Well, that's a good question. I would say, like I would have a question. You're about to expand your business. Do you know what it takes to sort of get to the next level? Something like that.
Do you know what it takes to get to the next level?
Yeah.
It's funny that you say that, because a lot of companies, including myself, we know how to get to a point, but from there you don't know how to maintain it. So what got you there will not keep you there, and then how to grow it from there. I got to a point where I got stuck, and I didn't know what it took to get me where I wanted to go next. Right?
It's very true, and businesses go through what's called stages of growth. So usually you have like from 0 to 10 employees, you have like what's a startup phase. And the company can be like 15 years old, but if it has less than 10 employees, it has some of these issues. And then from 10 to 20 employees, it's more of a ramp-up phase when we have some different business problems. From 20 employees, it's generally that's when the company really goes from being an owner-centric to an enterprise-centric company, and that's when a lot of the value in the business really can be built. But that the business focus changes. Like in any business, you have three main focus. You have like the money part, which is the profits, sales, cash flow, so forth. You have the people part, hiring, training, mentoring, and firing. And then you have the processes part, like how do we do what we do? And all of those three are important, but they're not equal important at every single stage. So, for example, when you get to about 20 employees, then the people part becomes very important, because the employees really have to buy into the company. And the leadership, the focus of a leader changes a little bit from being sort of more assertive and sort of a driver. The leader has to be more of a coaching type, because the employees really have to buy into the company. And the leadership style has to, so the leadership focus changes and the leadership style changes. And everyone has a natural leadership style, but you can adapt. Just like everyone is either an introvert or an extrovert, you can adapt if you have to. And but a lot of businesses don't get beyond these points, because, and it's not financial. It's there's certain things that have to be in place. They have to have certain leadership traits. They have to sort of do things within the company that if they don't do that, they stall. And so you find a lot of businesses that are 10 at the 10 employee mark is where that's sort of the top mark, where an owner can sort of completely manage everything himself, where everyone sort of talks to the owner, and he talks to all of the employees. Once you go beyond that, you need some help, and then at 20 employees is where another big change happens. And there are other stages as you get bigger. So that's it's very interesting as you go through the growth curve. A leader not only has to manage the finances, but he has to manage. There is a lot of other things that they have to take care of. So I find those things interesting, and I like to sort of deal with those issues. Now I come in from the financial side, but some of these other issues present themselves as you go along and as you grow the business.
You're completely right. I keep telling people, when I do some mentoring, I tell people, if you want to grow a $10 million company, you have to behave like a $10 million company. You cannot grow a $10 million company behaving like a $500,000 company or a $1 million company. It's impossible, right?
Yeah.
So they don't know what to do. And then I tell them, go talk to people like Henrik. Go talk to people that has the expertise to get you there. And that's the only way. It's the who's. What's the right who in your business? Especially for business owners, especially for people that are reaching the $1 million mark and they know they have so much more to offer, but they feel stuck. It's because they still want to do everything themselves, because they still have the limiting belief that what they do is best and nobody else can do it better than them, which goes back to the ego, right? It's just the ego talking.
That's
Henrik,
true. Yeah.
I don't want to abuse your time too much. Your wisdom is incredible. Thank you so much. You have blessed me deeply and you have blessed this audience. If people want to get in touch with you online, are you on LinkedIn, or how do they reach you?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm the only Henrik Leborg around. So it's HenrikLeborg. So you type that into LinkedIn. That's me. I have a website, gravityconsulting.ca. And I have a landing page, freescalingupbook.com, where you can order my book. So that should
for free. For free.
For free. Yes, that's right.
I don't know how you're doing that, but God bless you, man.
Okay.
Henrik, thank you so much. Have a beautiful rest of the week. Blessings, and I'll see you the next time.
That's all for today's episode of the Break Free podcast. Head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. Starting your own business can be tough, but it doesn't have to be. Visit davidmansilla.com to pick up a copy of the #1 international best-selling book, Breaking Out of Corporate Jail. Expand what you consider to be possible and reach your full potential. And join us on the next episode.